What's up, everybody? Steven here for Off the Shelf Movie Night to talk to you about physical media, about Blu-rays and 4Ks, and the way we like to own the movies and TV shows that we love. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Hit that notification bell and stay up to date on everything I got coming up. I got a lot of things coming up. We're still getting through 12 Hours of Terror. Well, I just finished another 12 Hours of Terror. We're getting through 31 Days of Halloween. So if you're into that kind of stuff, sub it up and hit me up in the comments. Talk to me about what you're watching for your 31 Days of Halloween. So, as you know, in my previous update, we did 12 hours, which was 7 films, and I updated those, and I loved every single one of those films, as I would have, because I curated them. The next 12 Hours of Terror I did was at my local art house theater. I had no input in curating these. It was going in cold. One of my favorite things about this event is that I don't know what they're showing until they show it. So you're really taking a chance. So this was another 7 films. So this is my first 14 films of October in 2 nights. Now, sadly, I'm going to say, I'll just be straight up with you. Of the 7 films that I watched in this 12 hours, I only liked 2 of them. That's not usually the case, but it's what happens sometimes. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. I've got them on my phone here. I want to make sure I tell them to you in the right order and what we actually watched. So I just want to make sure to have it up here. Now, that 12 Hours of Terror started with a phenomenal film. Best film of the night, actually. The 2007 film called Rec. This film, it's a Spanish film. It's never released, according to the folks at the Belcourt, and I trust them. They know more about this stuff than I do. And I never got to see it. It was never released theatrically in the United States. It is easily one of the best found footage style films ever made, if not the best. It's right up there. Basically, a news crew is following a fire department on their regular nightly routine for a late night news show. And they go to a building where they're called to for an assistance, to help some people in the building. And they get there, and suddenly they get locked in. Every exit is blocked. The windows are covered up. And they find out very quickly that there may be an outbreak of some kind inside the building, and the government is trying to quarantine them. So the film moves at a pretty breakneck speed, especially from that point forward. It's gory, it's scary, and for the most part, the found footage style approach to it is done pretty well. You see the movie through the lens of the news camera, and the person who's the anchor is still trying to anchor the whole time and trying to record the story to make sure that it's, what happens to them is recorded. So I highly recommend this film. This is a phenomenal film, one of the best films of that era, and definitely one of the best ever found footage type films. Again, I had never seen it in the theater, so this was such a fun way to begin that night. The next couple of movies actually come from the Shout Factory vault, which sucks because for me, it's a good chance I probably have that film and I've probably watched it. So, second film in the list is a 1980s film. I don't remember the exact date, but it is called Blood Diner. And I hadn't seen this film in probably 20 years. So I had hope for the best. And basically, it's 2 brothers who own a diner where they sell, they're a very popular diner. People love the food, and it's made of dead bodies. And there's an issue with their father, which I won't spoil. Gets kind of into the science fiction space. The movie also gets into the fantasy space. I don't like this movie, though, because... So I enjoy low-budget horror. I enjoy low-budget in general if it's well done. But particularly I can enjoy low-budget horror because it doesn't cost that much money to do a horror film, honestly, compared to other genres. But this film it put all of its money into the special effects. Not into its actors, not into its script, not into its cinematography, not into its editing, nothing. Everything went into the special effects. And you can... And that can be okay. It can be, like we've talked about ironically watching before, and I just don't support ironically watching film. But I couldn't even see how you would ironically watch this film, because it's apparent throughout the film that the filmmakers do not care. All they wanted to do was get boobs and blood onto celluloid so that they could make some money. And you can feel it throughout the film. They don't give a damn about what they're doing. And maybe the cast is not that way. Maybe the cast is actually having a good time. High point of this movie was one of the main actors actually did a little cell phone video intro for the Belcourt to show in front of the screening, and that was cool. But yeah, it's just, they don't care. I mean, this movie, I like camp, I can enjoy campy movies and that kind of thing, but this movie, they just don't give a shit. I hated this movie. So there you go. Next up was another Shout Factory release, and this is Alone in the Dark. And a lot of people have been making a big deal about being excited for this release. It's a movie that was a dead spot in my history. I had never seen this before, and I almost cold bought it. Really, I almost did cold buy it, because there was so much hype around the movie coming out, and I thought, maybe I need to get it and see it. Well, I got to see it in the theater, which is good and bad. It's good on a couple of, there's a couple of elements of good there. One is, I find, and this is my opinion, I think we've talked a little bit about this before, but nearly any movie is well served by seeing it in the theater with an audience. It's better than watching it first time at home. So, this movie has, so basically the story of this movie is this. It's a bunch of old school actors that are a handful of old school actors that are in an insane asylum run by Donald Pleasance, another old school actor. I mean, at that point, he was still, was coming off just all the John Carpenter stuff he was doing in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And basically, a new therapist joins the team, and one of the dudes in the insane asylum starts to think that the new therapist has killed the old therapist he really likes, and vows to kill him. And in order to do that, he needs to escape. So he is determined to, and eventually does escape, and they eventually get around to trying to kill this guy. It's very low on the blood scale. If you're in it for gore, don't come here. It's very slow paced. Ultimately, I just got to say it's boring. I'm glad I didn't cold buy this movie. It's boring. The one thing, a positive thing I will say about this thing is the bones of a cool concept are there. I mean, the setup is cool. This sort of skeleton of the script is good. Had they just amped everything up a little bit more and pumped up the pace a little bit more. They had great actors. It just didn't work to me. I think the excitement about this movie coming out on Blu-ray is a little bit of nostalgia from a lot of people, because I remember seeing it as a kid. Because it's for me, it wasn't good. I'm glad I saw it there, so I don't have to buy it and then flip it. All right, so the next film is a little more obscure. It's a Spanish film called Roboto, Arrebato. I'll let you look that up. I think it's Roboto. So I question that this is even a horror film. I think this film was, they often will program a film that's sort of endurance test to see if you can make it. And this one was that film, because it's a Spanish film about a filmmaker who does a lot of drugs and, has a girl that sleeps most of the time in his apartment and just sleeps and sleeps some more and then sleeps. And it has supposedly 10 minutes of, weirdness at the end. That 10 minutes was not weird. This movie is awful. It's everything I don't like about art house cinema, and it's like very, highbrow, elitist conversations about cinema between two actors on screen. Two people in a movie talking about a movie and being so highbrow about it. It's in this thing so much. It reminds me of some of the French cinema that I don't like. This is not a horror movie. It did not belong, for me, it did not belong in this 12 hours. It just didn't work. If some people like it, that's great. I'm not going to fault you for it. Maybe I would have appreciated it better not in this block. But yeah, did not like. So next movie, we finally get to something that I actually enjoyed. It is a late 80s movie called Leviathan. It's so funny because I remember seeing this DVD artwork, like seeing the cover art for Leviathan, my entire life. You know, seeing it in video stores and whatever, and just having not grabbed it and watched it. And it has a great cast led by Peter Weller, and basically it's a underwater monster movie. If you take The Thing and you take Alien and you smash them together, that you got it. You got Leviathan. It has some really cool special effects. It's got Meg Foster in it, you know, Mrs. Laser Eyes. I love Meg Foster. She just reminds me of the 80s so much because she was in so many things in that era. You can think about The Running Man or, you know, any number of other, like, she was in so many great movies in the 80s. Anyway, so yeah, it's an underwater movie. It's slow-paced in parts, but a little more precisely so. It didn't bother me. The gore effects and creature effects are really good. I will say there are times that the actors feel a little bored. There's one scene where there's like this horrible deformed mess of a monster that was a person that they all knew, and they see it and their reaction is like, oh, all right. It's like it has such little impact on them. It's pretty funny. Overall, though, I enjoyed this movie. This was a good movie to see in a 12 Hours of Terror block. You know, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. You know, it's one of those movies that you might not have seen otherwise, and it was a fun time overall. It was great. I liked it. So next up, we were tortured. We were assaulted with Exorcist II, The Heretic. I think the programmers had hoped that they would find some converts in this movie. They even referenced the fact that Quentin Tarantino says it's a good movie. And sometimes that's a calling card for me that we're about to watch something that sucks. I'm just saying. So, The Exorcist II, The Heretic, I've seen a few times throughout my life, and every time I've seen it, it's awful. It's cheesy. The acting is bad. It's painfully long. It goes on way too long. Just when you think it's over, there's like another hour left to go. It's awful. You know what? These movies are terrible, but they count because they're in the horror genre and they were part of my 12 Hours of Terror. All right? So the final movie was another film that I had never heard of. Now, I hated this movie as well, but at least it was just something I'd never heard of, didn't even know existed. It's called Silent Madness, and we were given the old, you know, red-blue 3D glasses to watch this film. It feels like sort of that, and maybe it is, I don't know, I just don't know anything about this film, but it feels like that sort of really lo-fi regional horror. You know, if you're into the boutiques, then you've heard that term before, especially if you're into Vinegar Syndrome, because they've been putting out a lot of regional horror. It's just real lo-fi. It's poorly acted. The script is bad. Special effects aren't that good. It actually tries to cover all that up with what I call waggle vision. It was back in the days of 3D when they would just waggle something in the screen in front of you for funny, and it kind of works the first 15 minutes or so of the film. It's kind of funny, entertaining, but then you got to settle in and realize you got another hour and 15 minutes or more of the film to watch, and it again, not good. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry to be so negative, you guys, but I'm just sharing my experience with you. Of these 7 films, there were 2 one amazing film, one legit like classic that, I don't know, seeing that one in the theater almost made the whole night worth it. And I had a great time this night. I didn't like any of these films other than I didn't like the other 5 films, but I was with people that are part of a community that I love, people, art house theater people and horror people who are willing to put themselves through this together. So we had a great time. It was really fun. And that's 7 more films on my list. but sadly, only like 2 of them. So that's all I got right now. I got more coming. A quick question. If you've made it to the end of the video right now, I have to go again to Texas this weekend for continued work on a documentary project. I am going to try and find some record shops and maybe do a little bit of movie hunting while I'm there between things if I have time. Would you guys like a vlog video here on YouTube of that trip? Let me know in the comments if you would. I'll think about doing that. I'm leaving Friday. I come back Monday. And then, of course, if I do some hunting, I'll share what I purchased with you guys. And I'm going to have to do the horrible and take some movies on my... Ooh, I can't even get it out. I'm going to have to take some movies on my iPad, some horror movies, so that I can continue the 31 days of Halloween, because I'm a little behind right now. I'm only, only 15 movies in, so I'm like 3 movies behind now as I record this. So yeah, so I'm going to take some movies with me, but it won't be anything that's a first-time watch, and it won't be anything that I don't own on physical. That's the other thing. I don't own a single digital... Well, take that back. I own a couple... I was going to say I don't own a single digital film that I don't actually have on physical because I've just kept the digital for travel. But there's a couple of times signing up for the Universal Movie Club or something like that where I've gotten a free movie here or there, and usually they're terrible, but they're in my library, so they count. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be doing that. Let me know if you want to see that vlog, and let me know what you've been watching. What's the best movie that you've watched for 31 days of Halloween so far? Maybe it'll be something I can add to what I'm watching. Until next we meet, pull something cool off the shelf, share with your friends and family, and remind them why physical media is the best way to watch films and TV. I'll see you guys on the next one.